My arm about to.
All right, peace and love, family. It's your host Tavon, back with the emphatic truth. Today we have a two special guests in the building for our Truth Talk series. This is going to be around advice you would give to your 18-year-old self. So today I got my good friend and alpha brother Isaiah in the building, and also I have my good friend and middle school buddy Tommy in the building. So both of these guys are very meaningful, doing very meaningful stuff in their own careers. Have some good advice that I believe that we can learn from. You guys can pick some tools and put them in your own tool belt eventually in your own life. So let's hop right into it. So again, this is more so a discussion based. It's not really anything in any particular format. It's more so like a flow. We're just flowing with it based off of what we're feeling at the time and the questions that are being asked. So please tell a friend. If you're on live joining us, tell a friend to go ahead and join us at the Emphatic Truth and save that in your Rolodex of IG familiar stories so you can be always in tune with what we got going on here. All right, so the first question I'll ask Tommy, and then I'll ask Isaiah the same thing. What advice would you give to your 18-year-old self about the importance of networking and taking advantage of opportunities presented to you at an early age?
Well, I think for me, when I was 18, that's probably that's towards the end of my senior year of high school, and I think what I would tell my 18-year-old self is don't be afraid of what's ahead, because when you're afraid of what's ahead, you sort of get lost in judgment, and it really affects what you do going forward. Mm-hmm. Always go with your first instinct and not the next instinct, because normally if you don't stick with that first instinct that you have, you normally just get tossed off the road, and then you just get lost in where you're supposed to be. And just the importance of it is just knowing that you don't have to be afraid to say that you need help. Mm-hmm. You have to be able to take your pride aside and say, I need help with certain things. When you're 18, you're still in your teens. You think you know everything. You think you can just go along and just do whatever you feel like you have to do, but you're not a grown adult yet. Mm-hmm. You're not there yet. Just because you think that, I'm moving out to college and I'm doing my own thing now, but that reality sinks in when your parents take you out there to college and they're gone.
Right.
So you really have to be able to have your own back and know which outlets to go to. So I think for me, it would be to don't be afraid to branch out to different people to ask for help, because that is what affected me when I was 18, and that's the message that I bring to my kids every day before they head off to college.
That's good advice. How about you, Zay?
Kind of on the same lines, really. You gotta understand that it's just something you have to do. And even now, I learned today, it's an everyday process. But you gotta do it. You gotta just take the chance. You gotta just jump out there. You have to do it. Every situation is not gonna be perfect where you have the perfect networking opportunity, and it just all lines up. It doesn't work like that. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes, it may not be the best experience. Sometimes they may not respond to you at all. Sometimes they may give you, information that you didn't expect them to give. They gave more than they overshared in terms of information. But you have to have the expectation that you can't go in with a certain expectation that everyone is going to be, you're going to get the best information. This is going to be the moment to change your life. But you have to understand that even if you don't get something, you have to be able to take that as a lesson and understand what that means. Maybe, the way you went about it, maybe the questions that you asked, maybe even just that person, maybe it's not the best person to do that with. Maybe you have to get to know them a little bit more, whatever the case may be. So you have to understand there's so many different things that can happen when you network. So it's not like you can have one expectation of how it's going to go, but understand that it's something that you have to do all the time. And, regardless of whether you want to, whether you feel like you have to, there's always going to be times where you need, help from somebody else or maybe a good word from somebody else. Trying to do it by yourself all the time and like personally, I learned those things too because it's like when you get so used to doing those things, it's comfort. It's kind of like you're in your zone where it's like, okay, I know how to do this or I'm going to do this. I feel comfortable. I know like I'm going to put my all into it or I'm going to, be 100% with it. But at the same time, you just have to take that leap of faith and understand that like, while you can do it by yourself, it's always better to try to include somebody else that you can, if you can, because that way, you have more help, you have more perspective, and it gives you the chance to also kind of sit back and maybe learn from what they're doing and vice versa.
Right. Because as you just hit on the head, at 18, you don't have it all down pat. You certainly don't know it all. And all of us been 18 before, so that's why I think these little bit of information that we can provide to someone else to help maybe their journey if you're a freshman in college or you're that high school senior, like, man, should I even go to college? And we're some older young dudes, right, successful in our own way, and just want to pour into, some younger people in a positive way, particularly black men. So that's what this focus is really about, pouring into black men, and that's why I have, two outstanding black men next to me to actually speak to this as opposed to, having anyone else. So that leads me into my next question. What is one lesson that you have learned in your 20s, right, that you wish you would have known when you were 18? Like, and it can be more than one lesson, but I always want to hear, and feel free to chime in with your thoughts on one lesson that you wish you would have, known at that 18, but you've learned throughout your 20s.
I guess I would say it's a couple of things. One would be entrepreneurship. I know about it, but just more so understanding how I could fit, the way I work into that scenario. I mean, every entrepreneur isn't the same, and I think, when I was younger, I kind of had just a one type of idea of what it was, and like you couldn't do nothing else but be an entrepreneur and all that. I think when it's completely the opposite. And you have so much more flexibility and leverage with your life and the way you do certain things by being an entrepreneur.
Right.
So I would probably say that's the first thing. And then the second thing was kind of what we was talking about even a couple of days ago. It was more so just kind of like sticking to your passions. A lot of times we get these certain ideas of how we are supposed to like move into life, whether it's, go to college, get major in this, go to grad school, do X, Y, and Z and certain things like that. And, we lose sight of, at the end of the day, it's your life to live. Right. And you have to find things that truly bring value to you in situations where you really feel like you want to make an impact. Sometimes, we get caught in going through the motions just to survive, but, at the end of the day, you don't want to look back on that and have any regrets or just always wonder what if. So it's like, stick with your passions. There's always ways you can turn those into a business. There's ways you can, collab that with your entrepreneurship and find ways to make that happen. But ultimately, I think that's the real way you're going to, one, be happy, but two, find something that, you don't look at as work. It's something that you will want to do every day, for the rest of your life.
Yeah, and I think you said an important point there where you're not just going through the motions. Because at 18, right, you can be just going through the motions like, I'm just trying to get out my mom's house. I'm about to go to the first school that accept me, right? And I had friends like that. Heck, I was even like that. I went to a school 5 hours away at Indiana University of Pennsylvania. But when I got there, as you said, it was a reality check for me. So that's a very important point, So Tom, answer me the same question. Like, what's one lesson, you think you've learned in your 20s that you wish you would have known or had some insight in at the age of 18?
Well, it's two things that stand out to me. I think the first one is definitely saving. Saving my money. When I was 18, I mean, I didn't really start working until I was probably 19, 20 years old. I started off as a bus monitor for the summer camp, and I just remember when I got my first paycheck, I spent it. And like,
blew that joint.
Yeah, I blew that joint up. And like, the funny part was I wasn't getting paid on time.
Right. Okay.
So it wasn't like I was getting it like every other week.
Right.
I was just getting it like
whenever
I only got one check. The entire summer. And
Oh, you had a stipend there.
Yeah, I had a
That wasn't
stipend.
no
Like,
check. You got a stipend.
Yeah.
Like a one-time
But
thing.
the thing, but everybody else at my job was getting paid but me. So I'm thinking I'm like, okay, so what's going on here?
Oh, yeah.
So like they said they made a mistake, you know,
Yeah,
and all
they
that,
did.
and so they just gave me one check.
Okay.
But it wasn't a whole lot of money, but it was enough money for me to save it.
Yeah, right.
But I was 19 years old. Like
Right.
I was 19, 20 years old. Like I wasn't thinking about saving it. I took that check out. Like I was buying games. I was doing just dumb stuff.
Right. Doing 18-year-olds.
Yeah, just doing 18-year-old stuff. So I
Yeah.
think that now, you know, every tax check I get, it goes to my savings.
Mm-hmm.
Every single one of them checks, the stimulus checks,
Yeah, that's
I save it.
Yeah.
I save it. I mean, everything that you feel like you don't have to spend, you save it.
Right.
Because that's going to help you, especially if you're trying to start a business. You know, that stuff matters as you get into it, you know, from a broader standpoint. So that's something that I do much better that I've learned. Another thing, though, is I learned how to fail. But I don't want people out there to get confused with what I'm saying. There's a difference between failing and I'm quitting. If you're 18, you know, and you fail at something, you're probably gonna quit because you're like you're not mentally tough enough to be like, I don't know if I can do this. I need to keep going because this might get somewhere.
Right.
But it's how you approach failing, and it's how you approach the sense of doubt in your head that makes you feel like, oh, like I can't do this.
Right.
Then if you have that mindset, then you're gonna quit. But failing is actually supposed to help you get better.
Right.
And it's supposed to help you learn through your mistakes. And it actually makes you stronger as a businessman or as a coach or like whatever you do for your career, because it helps you gain that experience as you get into it.
Right.
So for me, failing to me, it's only made me a better person.
There you
It's
go.
only made me a better, you know, it's made me go after my goals a lot harder than I would when I was 18.
Right.
So I think that those things really add up.
Right.
And it's inevitable.
Yeah, it's
You
never,
know,
yeah,
like,
you're
you're
gonna
going to fail like
Go ahead. Yeah.
through the rest of your life. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? There's not like you're never going to just get it right. So I think that's a great point because it's like that's something you have to be prepared with dealing with. You have to know how I'm going to react once that happens. Am I going to just like go in my shell, or am I going to figure out a way to work around it?
So in the business world or in the corporate world, they have a saying, fail fast, right? But then, as you said, failing fast at that young age, that 18-year-old age, or that, you know, that early stage in your progression of what you're trying to do helps sort of reconcile why you're doing it. And if you're not doing it for the right reason, then yes, you're going to do what you said do. Quit, right? You're going to quit because you don't see the value in what you're doing. And I can tell you from the experience with just building this brand or having a passion beyond, you know, some people's dreams and expectations for what I should be doing. It's hard to stay consistent. It's hard to, you know, fight that self-doubt sometimes, but it's something that I had to fail fast and early, right? Back in 2013 and 2014 when I was really starting this brand and building the Emphatic Truth. So that's a very important point, and it sort of leads me into my next question. What advice, right? We're talking in terms of entrepreneurship. What advice would you give to a young person pursuing entrepreneurship, and maybe even the importance of pursuing entrepreneurship? Because as you think about it, right, we're in 2020. So throughout the year of 2020, you had, you know, the COVID, civil rights protests. The election has happened. People have been getting laid off, 43 million people plus, right? So, and the stimulus check was just that saving grace for some people. But what advice, you know, would you give to young people about the importance of entrepreneurship? And just to clarify what entrepreneurship really is, it's assuming all the responsibility, all the risk, right, of your business or brand. So that means doing the work in terms of building a website or building, you know, your following up. What advice would you give around a young person trying to pursue entrepreneurship?
Well, I think that there's two things. One, you have to be patient. Being an entrepreneur requires patience. It doesn't come with a snap of a finger. You have to lay out your plan and take it down brick by brick. And it may take months, may take a couple years. But it goes back to that adage, like, just know, you're gonna fail. But you have to be able to embrace that failure. So that's one. I think two, another thing is make sure you keep your circle small. Keep your team small. You're gonna gain a whole bunch of allies as you build your business up.
Right.
It's going to be people that want that quote unquote piece of the pie. They're gonna want that piece of the pie. But it's up to you as how you share your wealth towards people. You always have to keep in mind of who was with you when you first started and who's with you when you get to the top.
Right.
Because that is so important, especially with everything that's going on. Like, with the whole, with this whole racial oppression and everything, people are showing their true colors out here. And it's wise. It's really dependent on you to make sure you learn about who you have around you.
Yeah.
You have to know, because at the end of the day, because once you make it, that's normally when the true colors come out.
Yeah.
So because they're gonna get, greedy, they're gonna get cruel, they're gonna feel entitled because they feel like they've been there since day one. And whether they've left your life, whether they have, not put in the same amount of work as you because they got stagnant and felt like you did enough.
Right.
But you don't feel complacent, and you keep pushing to get to also where you want to go from the jump. All that stuff matters. You have to be able to observe people for who they really are. So those are two things that really stand out to me, because as you can tell, how unfortunate this country is in terms of it being divided. This knowing who you are, this being on the right side of history stuff, it matters.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, you have to know that once you get there, you got there with some genuine people.
Right. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's a good one. How about you, Zay? Because we know, you got your brand and your business that you're building up. So, what advice would you give to a young person trying to pursue the same stuff?
Yeah, so it's actually a couple of things. But the first one I would say is that you definitely need some form of entrepreneurship. I think this time has definitely shown us, that nothing's guaranteed. Even if you have a good, secure job, things can happen that's outside of our control. So it's like, how else are you preparing? Are you waiting till these situations arise, or are you being proactive in how you maneuver and kind of how you plan out the things that you have to take care of yourself.
Right.
But this would be there's no one playbook to entrepreneurship, and it comes in many different forms. And I think you have to figure out what it is for you.
Yeah.
Like you said, whether it's a t-shirt business, whether it's a catering service, whether it's a delivery service, whether you do nails, whether you cut hair, whether you a mechanic, whatever it is, you can, like, all of that is entrepreneurship. And all those things, again, they bring value, they have meaning. These are things that we need every day. So I think when you think of entrepreneurship, again, think, the bigger picture. Look at the bigger picture. Don't, a lot of times you may think of like real estate and things like that. And of course, those are wonderful things to do, but it doesn't mean you have to do those types of things. Again, whatever you're passionate about, there's a way you can kind of turn that into your business. So understand that, there's a lot of different outlets and avenues that you have to take when you're getting started in your entrepreneurship. That would be the first thing. And then the second thing I would say, probably the biggest thing for me was to ask questions. Ask so many questions. Like, of course, when you're starting into it, you're going to be new. So it's like there's going to be a lot of things that you feel like that you may not know all the way. There'll be some things that you don't know. There'll be some things you probably didn't even think about that you had to know.
Right.
So, ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. And I think that ties in with the networking, too, we was talking about earlier. Don't just reach out to somebody. If you feel like they may have the answer or they have that type of experience, just ask them. Just reach out to them and see, read. Obviously, you got Google and everything. Figure out where you can find books, articles, people talking about the things that you're looking to do, so you can kind of get an idea of maybe some of the things that they encounter, so you can kind of be ready for those, when you see them, or some things that you may not even have to go through, but you wouldn't know that if you didn't read it, or if you didn't come across it, or if you didn't try to find a way to research that information. So, always ask questions, never be afraid to ask questions, ask as many questions as you can. I know, like, playing basketball, one of the things our coaches always said was the stupidest question was the question not asked.
There you go.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because that way you're never gonna learn it.
Yeah.
Because you never even thought of asking. So you gotta, again, put that fear to the side, and be curious.
Right.
Be very curious for that knowledge. And I think, like if you do that, everything else will kind of tend to fall in place. But having those things is some consistent foundations that you can kind of use when you jump starting into your entrepreneurship.
Right. Yeah, and I think you said something important. There is asking those questions and reaching out and reading. So we have this this idea that everyone is creating a business and the market is oversaturated and all that. But we have to remind ourselves that it's a niche and we have our own following, right? And our own people that we can market to. So it's a market for everyone. And it's a market for people that want to learn how to become better entrepreneurs from listening to people who have done so in the past. But I think it makes a great point to say, okay, ask those questions that you thought were a stupid question to ask, because in reality, you're going to be asking questions as an entrepreneur throughout your entrepreneur journey, right? You're not going to get up there.
Something to learn.
Yeah, you're not working off no $1 million type of corporations, or you aren't there yet. So it's more so a humbling mindset that you have to come with, and sort of talk to yourself, that self-talk, that positive self-talk, to say, hey, I don't know everything, but I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to actually grow with the people that's willing to put the valuable information inside of me, and then I'm willing to run with it afterwards. I'm not just going to harbor this information. Oh yeah, I got it. You get it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm on this mindset of, and I always talk about this, collaboration over competition, right? Collaboration over competition, because what it starts to brew in your mind that, hey, I need you, right? I need you to make this business pop, right? I needed you guys for this video, right? I could have sat here for 15 minutes and talked, but would it be as valuable, or would it be as impactful for those people on the other end receiving this information? Right. So having those people willing to raise their hand and willing to step up to the plate to support you as you go through your journey, it makes more sense when you're looking at it 5 years, as you said, and this person is where you are at, as opposed to that person coming out the woodworks 5 years after you've already started.
Right.
So, any final thoughts? I really do appreciate this conversation. It was very good. I know we could probably talk all day long about this topic, but any final thoughts as we here regarding advice to your 18-year-old self?
Yeah, I would say, and again, it's something that you deal with every day. I mean, these things that we tell you, it's like, it's not like you kind of get there and it stops, and then you don't have to worry about these things. It's things that you're always going to have to worry about, as you're going through life or whatever you're doing. But enjoy the process. Enjoy the process. Like I said, I have to remind myself that, when I go through the things that I'm going through and kind of how I plan the things, but it's there for a reason. It's there to help you grow. It's nothing, you can't run from it. It's inevitable. But it truly kind of, when you go on the other side and you kind of finish with it, you definitely see the reasoning behind it. You see how it affected you. You see how it made you stronger. You see the things that you could have did better. It shows you that whole picture of kind of, how you started and where you got, and, how far you came, but also how far you need to go. So always kind of enjoy that process, embrace it, because it's only going to bring the best out of you in the end.
Yeah.
I think for me, what I would tell, especially the younger generation, especially because of me working at a school, I would just tell my kids, the kids that I coached, the kids that that I mentor now. What I always tell them is, do not be afraid to go after your truth. You have a responsibility every day to bring out the best version of yourself every single day.
There you go.
And you cannot be complacent. There's, how it was back when our parents raised us is not the same as it was. It's not the same now. This is a much more evolved world. technology is such a big thing. Take advantage of those things.
Mm-hmm.
Use it as a site. Use it as a benchmark for your kind of change.
Right.
Because I'm sure we are all still learning. But there's nothing that we know, that we still need to learn more about, if that makes sense.
Right.
So I would say just continue to attack. Don't be afraid, because society wants you to be afraid. There's people that don't. There's people that want you to win, and there's people that don't want you to win.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to live with the fact that there's two sides to this,
Mm-hmm.
and what matters is which side is going to suck you in the
Right.
most. Is it going to be the side that wins or the side that loses?
Mm-hmm.
It's all in our control, because in our mind we sort of get caught up in the negative thoughts that we have because of what we see on TV or even what the media wants you to see on different news outlets or whatever. Sometimes you just gotta block it out and just think about what you want to do.
Right.
Just cut the TV off and write down what you want to do. What do you want to accomplish by the start of the year? And then go after it. Don't be afraid, because like I said, you're gonna fail, you're going to stumble, you're gonna fall, but what do you learn? So that would be my advice. Don't be afraid to go after what you want to go after. Don't let anybody stop you.
That's you hit it right on the nail, and I actually forgot to mention this earlier about goal setting. Right, I didn't even think about I'm thinking about my 18-year-old self, but 18-year-old self probably wasn't thinking about no goals. But in the midst of us being in college, we were on that sort of set the goals for 5 months and in a year, and then 4 years down the line. I even remember when I was in freshman in high school, and our homeroom teacher had us write letters to ourselves that we would be given on the day that we was going to graduate, right? And I remember writing that letter, and I'm like, I ain't gonna never see this letter again. But she gave it back to us, and the letter had stuff on there like I'm a letter in all 3 sports, and I'm gonna get good grades, and I'm gonna go to this college and all this other stuff. And it sort of created that reality, as you said, that what I wrote down should have been and willingly doing so, working towards that the last 4 years of me, in high school. So that goal setting, we don't want to, discredit that. We want to understand the importance of goal setting. And we talk about that a lot of the times in the articles that we publish on the Emphatic Truth. So as we wrap up, I just want to, do we have any questions?
We didn't have any questions, but we did have some good comments, hang around people who think like you and are about growing and evolving. And someone also said having connections with others, networking. I think we touched on that as well. So, and then someone said the importance of starting your own business, and we also touched on that. So,
Absolutely. So I appreciate everyone has joined the live. This is also going to be posted on our YouTube channel, The Emphatic Truth TV. And it's also going to be posted on our podcast on iTunes. You can find it under The Emphatic Truth. But I appreciate Tommy and Zay for joining me today.
Of course.
Absolutely.
Definitely, encourage you guys to follow these guys at their own respective channels. To go ahead and shout out your channel and make sure and of course your business page as well.
Yeah, so I got a new brand that's upcoming. Stay tuned for some lookouts at Juice Archives, juice.archives. You'll have some things coming. Definitely excited to kind of get those things going. So definitely be on the lookout for that. And then personally at Zeke Petrovich.
I'll drop the links below. About to have a spelling bee in the comments.
Okay. And Tommy J _3. You guys can follow me on that. For me, I'm starting up my own business for working kids out athletically for football and basketball, because I did coach at the French School of Baltimore for within our basketball program. So I'm looking forward to being able to coach again once I get my goals in check and everything that I'm trying to do. So.
That's really the truth. So we appreciate, again, I'm saying we, like I'm online still, but I appreciate you guys for joining us. Again, be sure to check us out on the website at theemphatictruth.com. Subscribe to our YouTube again, and just really be on the lookout. Spread the word. Because we hitting heavy this year. As we go into 2021, we're going to see a lot more series around Tell Your Truth series and advice and motivation and just encouragement for black men, women, and people of the African diaspora. So peace out. Appreciate you for joining.
Peace.
Peace. God bless.
Don't delete it. I want to save it.
Okay. I hit end now.
That's my first time doing one.